This video is now in session, and China at this moment is at a faster pace than the United States in terms of most things, in terms of the economy, in terms of infrastructure, manufacturing, all of these kinds of things that China is getting better at than the United States. And that should be pretty alarming for the US in terms of its future. A lot of the problems that we have as a nation is we don't realize how good China is becoming. Obviously, there are a lot of problems, and we can focus about China's problems, but if we only focus about China's problems, we never recognize their success, and thus we never respond to their success, making us less worthy of actually going against them in the future. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about the solar industry and the renewable industry in general, infrastructure, and as well as manufacturing. So, with the solar industry, China's solar industry is becoming better, and it's producing a lot more solar power, and it's becoming one of the biggest markets in the world. China's solar industry is becoming one of the biggest, and it's rivaling the U.S. and it's doing even better than the United States. So, how the United States is responding to this is through the American Jobs Plan, which also covers infrastructure, but it plans to spend billions of dollars on renewable energy, on trying to create spaces where solar powers can go, wind turbines can go, geothermal energy, and other renewable sources in order to combat China's renewable energy industry. You can see here there are a bunch of solar powers, and it's something that the United States has to grapple with because the solar industry is a very lucrative industry. It creates a lot of jobs, and it creates a lot of good paying jobs, very high paying jobs that are above the minimum wage in the United States compared to coal jobs, which are more or less minimum wage. So, with this kind of industry, it's important for the United States to lead it and to be the world supplier of renewable energy. But at this moment, we're fighting about if renewable energy is even needed. We have people saying that wind turbines cause noise cancer or other things that are just blatantly kind of ridiculous to say. But nonetheless, this argument that we're having allows China to do all of its advancements as a one party nation, and it allows China to get ahead of the United States when the United States is still bickering about these kinds of issues. And we will continue to see a bickering about these issues so long as oil companies like Exxon and as well as ExxonMobil and then like ConocoPhillips, as long as those oil companies continue to dominate Republican politics. And it really shouldn't be a partisan issue. The issue of renewable energy, the issue of moving over from fossil fuels, it's like it should really be in favor of the Conservative Party. It's conservation, conserve. It's about giving more economic freedoms, more economic options, having competitive markets between solar power, geothermal, and as well as fossil fuel, among other sources of energy. So these kinds of benefits that come from renewable sources, they really are conservative values. But unfortunately, we have big oil companies trying to lobby people in Congress to go against these kinds of propositions, and that's why even though a lot of Republicans used to support climate change and used to support renewable energy, Ronald Reagan used to support renewable energy. They all used to support renewable energy until the oil industries came and stopped all of it. So that's how China is now leading in an industry that the United States doesn't. And for people who say the United States doesn't need to lead in this industry, that's not necessarily the right mindset to have, especially if you're an American, because obviously you want to be number one in everything, but also, again, there are lucrative jobs at stake in renewable energy. And if the United States invests in renewable energy, then it doesn't have to rely as much on fossil fuels. And the prices for fossil fuels can they are incredibly volatile these days. It can get low, it can get high, like it did in 2014. So renewable energies are the future, but the United States is not invested in it. The other thing that the United States is not invested in is in transportation. It's in infrastructure. So for China, they're invested in electric cars, electric buses, bus rapid transit, so mass transit, public transit, bike sharing, electric bikes, metro systems, high speed rail, integrated systems, so between buses, walking, biking, and driving. And you can see here that they're invested in all of these kinds of different avenues of transportation. And the United States, meanwhile, is not really doing any of this. Again, the American Jobs Plan is supposed to solve a lot of this with a $2 trillion package. It might go down to $1.2 trillion after a bipartisan agreement was made among 5 Democratic senators and 5 Republican senators, but nonetheless, there's still nothing being passed at this moment. There's nothing about having electric vehicles. There's nothing about having public transit that's affordable to everyone, because these kinds of systems it allows people to go to urban places, allows them to connect and travel around urban places. And with urban mobility, that's very important for the economy, because it really helps the economy if you're able to easily go from one place to another. And currently in the United States, let's take New York City, for example. The New York City has a metro, it does have a subway system, but I want to talk about the North River Tunnel system, which is what connects New Jersey over to New York City. So this is a pair of tunnels, so there are 2 tunnels on in the Hudson River between New Jersey and New York City, and they transport before the pandemic, they transported millions of passengers back and forth every single day. And if those two tunnels were to be demolished, or if those 2 tunnels were to be out of use, which is very likely since it's over 110 years old, then it's likely that the New York City economy would lose billions of dollars from those pair of tunnels being removed, because those individuals who commute to work from New Jersey would instead have to drive over, since the only other option is really driving or taking the path, which is also unreliable. And it creates it kind of incentivizes people to from there just work from home and not go to work, because of the traffic that would be created from a lot of people going to work by car. So our infrastructure system, it's very subpar compared to the Chinese infrastructure system. And what allowed China to advance so quickly is due to transportation. It's due to infrastructure. Before the Chinese high-speed rail was made, before this entire rail system was produced and built out, China was not really that big of an economic country. It wasn't really a powerhouse similar to the way that the United States or most other Western nations are. But with high-speed rail, once they started implementing that, urbanization became a real thing, where a lot of people traveled from rural places over to urban places and started working there. And as a result, it created a huge economy. It created a lot of jobs, and it also helped advance the Chinese economy to first world status. And again, there's a lot of problems with the Chinese economy today, but nonetheless, this is what helped China propel to the world stage. It's infrastructure. It's through high-speed rail systems. Now, the United States, understandably, I guess, can't really do high-speed rail. It doesn't have the same kind of jurisdiction that the Chinese high-speed rail does, where they can just bulldoze through villages and through houses. The United States can't really do that in order to create high-speed rail, and thus it would cost trillions of dollars for this kind of system in the United States, even though in China it would cost a lot less. But there are still other avenues the United States can take. They can use streetcars, they can use light rail, they can build out rails, regular speed rail between intercities, so like Oklahoma City to Dallas, or St. Louis to Chicago, to build out that infrastructure, or Raleigh Durham to Charlotte. those kinds of inner city rail lines that help connect individuals between suburbs and cities makes it so much easier for people to commute, and it makes it a lot better for the economy of the United States, since they're spending on Amtrak, they're spending on public transit, and that public transit goes to fund it, and as well as other ventures. And in return, individuals get to go to the suburbs and then commute to the city. So that's the good part about infrastructure, and that's something China is beating the U.S. right now. It has beaten the U.S. for a very long time now, and it's not really likely that anything will change because of the American Jobs Plan. The American Jobs Plan, even if it spends $1.2 trillion, it's very unlikely that this bill will be able to pass the Senate. There are 5 Republicans that support the bill, but there needs to be 5 additional Republicans, and that's not even accounting for the fact that Bernie Sanders or the progressive senators might not even support a $1.2 trillion bill. They might instead be steadfast on $2 trillion, or $2.3 trillion is the official number. So that's another problem the United States faces. Now, in terms of the third problem, the third problem is manufacturing. Manufacturing in China for the longest of time has been much better than the United States. Now, I'm not focusing on steel manufacturing or like manufacturing of pencils or those kinds of things, because let China do those things. The United States could manufacture pencils, they could manufacture steel, aluminum, but seriously, do you really want to manufacture those kinds of things? It's not, if you do, then I'm very sorry for making up your mind for you, but those are not really high-paying jobs compared to manufacturing of chips, or like more technology-oriented manufacturing. Those kinds of products are much more expensive to manufacture, and thus make more money for people who manufacture them. And as a result, that's why the Senate passed a massive bipartisan manufacturing bill that involves the setting up of chip factories in the United States. So it spends $52 billion to support domestic semiconductor manufacturing. It authorizes $81 billion for the National Science Foundation and $16.9 billion for the Department of Energy. And those are important things because for the $52 billion, this directly counteracts what China has been doing for the past couple of years, which is have a monopoly on manufacturing chips. Currently speaking, China and Taiwan both have a very big amount of a very big chip industry, and it's practically a monopoly or duopoly at this point, the two areas, and it's something that the United States has to rely on. The United States has to rely on China in order to get chips manufactured, and that's not really a good thing for the United States if they want to be able to go against China, because if they're going against China, they have to be self-reliant, and if they're relying on China on such a critical technology or critical component like chips, then it's not good for the United States to go against them in a full force. So that's why the Senate passed a bill supporting domestic semiconductor manufacturing, and that will allow the United States to start producing chips so that it can power the United States' technology, and it does create jobs. It's in factories, and it's not necessarily gonna be minimum wage kinds of jobs. It might be above minimum wage. And the National Science Foundation funds, it's mainly for research purposes of trying to make the United States better at technology, since technology will forever and has been the dominant player in innovation. Technology has always been has always been part of innovation, and if the United States wants to have a monopoly on something, then trying to innovate on a piece of technology gets a lot done and gets to that goal. So those are the three things that the United States and China are fighting for. Currently, China wins all three of these industries: the renewable energy industry, the infrastructure and transportation industry, and then the manufacturing industry, specifically with chips. And these are all things that the United States can easily solve through bills. We're not endorsing the American Jobs Plan per se, we're not going against it either, but the American Jobs Plan solves all of these three issues. It solves infrastructure by building out rails, roads, bridges, airports, public transit systems. It solves on renewable energy by placing more funding on renewable sources and starting to build renewable energy in rural states like Montana, Utah, Texas, and it also goes to coastal states like New Jersey for offshore wind turbines. It also invests a lot in chips and manufacturing so that it goes better against China. These are all technically parts of infrastructure, energy, transportation, and as well as manufacturing. But they all fall under the American Jobs Plan, but it's not likely going to be passed, and maybe that's a symptom of what the founding fathers wanted, with not a lot of progress. Like, they didn't want bad people doing a lot of things, even so they sacrificed good people doing a lot of things. Now, obviously, there's a lot of debate to this as to whether the American Jobs Plan is effective or not, but if the United States wants to go against China in these three sectors, then they better pass something related to the American Jobs Plan or the American Jobs Plan itself. So that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.